Once you have the text field on the page, you can edit its properties, and the properties for the text field are going to determine a number of different things. First, let's zoom in so that we can see the text field nice and closely. I'll double-click on it with the text field tool, and that will open up the text field properties dialog box. This is the same dialog box that appears when you create the text field in the first place, and frankly, in most cases, you'll actually set these properties before you close it. Let's move through the properties and understand what we need to do. The number one property to consider is the field's name. Always, always, always name your fields. Whether it's a radio button, a text field, or any other kind of form field, name it. Even if you're not going to use that name for anything, name it. And you'll see an example of why that's important later in this lesson. But for now, we'll name this one Ship2. The next thing to do is to determine its properties. The common properties for the field are the properties overall. For example, is it visible? Is it read-only? Is it a required field? These are things that will structurally determine how the field is going to interact with the end user. For example, it's possible to have a field that is visible but doesn't print. Perhaps it's hidden when you're looking at the form on screen, but it prints when the document is printed. In this case, we're just going to choose that the form be visible. Next up are the appearance properties. How do you want the form generally to look? Do you want it to have a fill color? I could have it with a yellow fill color. Notice that over here on the document it previews for me. I can set it to have a fill color. I am not going to, because in this case I want it to look like someone is typing directly onto the form. But if you want to make it very, very obvious that this is a field to fill in, you might give it a fill color or even a border color. I don't tend to use them, but it's something that you can do. Font size and font are important, especially if you're creating a field that's designed to work in the context of the rest of the form. Here's what I mean. I'll move this over to the side. This is some static data that was already built into the form. I want to create a form field that's going to match that with respect to its appearance. So what I'll do is choose from my font, Times Roman, and 12 point, or I could choose 14, or if I happen to know exactly what the point size is, I can type in a custom value. I'll do that because I happen to know that it's 15 point. To test this out, I can click close and type some information into it and see how it looks. However, instead what I'm going to do is use the options for the form to help me. I'll move the text field properties dialog box back over here, and I'm going to put a default value into the field. Notice that when I do that, and then I just hit the Tab key to jump out of this little default value field here, that Acrobat is previewing the text for me. It allows me to see the appearance of the form as I'm beginning to build it. The final thing that I need to do with the options here is click multi-line, and what multi-line does is it allows the field to have multiple lines. So I can type, hit return, type, hit return. In fact, I can test that by adding some more default values. So I'll hit enter and type in a fake shipping address, 555 Shipping Way. And again, I'm going to tab out of this little value field so that I can see how it's going to look on the form. There are a number of other options that I can take advantage of that I'm not going to bother with here. For example, I could allow rich text formatting so that someone could use bolds and italics in this field. I can limit the number of characters in the field, which might be useful if it's a specific number that I'm looking for. And also I can check spelling. Now in this form field, I'm going to deselect that because I don't want to check the spelling of the information in this field, mostly because shipping addresses will often have words that aren't in Acrobat's dictionary. If I enable check spelling, what Acrobat will do is it will put a red squiggly line underneath words that it doesn't recognize. I don't want that to be a part of the form filling experience for the user, so I'm going to turn that off. But it's useful to know that if you're asking people to type information into a text field that you do want to have them spell correctly, this is a nice little tool that you can give them so that while they type, they can see that they've made a spelling mistake. I'll turn that off and I'm good to go. I'll go ahead and close the form. And again, I'm going to preview it to see if it looks like it should. There are two more formatting issues that I want to take advantage of here, and there are a couple of techniques that I've developed from working with these forms that can really help with the process of building a form so that it matches the rest of the elements on the document correctly. The first thing is that I want to align the baselines of the shipping address and the static text. And to do that, I'm going to use rulers and guides in Acrobat to sort of turn this into almost a little page layout program, at least for the time being. Under View, I'm going to check Rulers, and that brings up my rulers. I'll also select to view guides. Now there are no guides in the document, but I'm going to add one. To add a guide, I'll grab it from the ruler and drag down. And this is just a little line that I can use. I'm going to set it to the baseline of this text in the document right here. Now you can see that I've done a pretty good job actually of lining this up, but that was accidental, so let me show you how I would adjust it if I needed to. I'll open the text field tool again, click on my box, and instead of moving it with the mouse, as I just did here, which can be imprecise and also is a little bit heavy-handed, I'm going to use the arrow keys to nudge the field on the document. I'm going to hit the left arrow, trying to center it in the Ship To area, and then I'm going to nudge it down so that the baseline of enter a shipping address matches the baseline of the text that was already in the document. And the final thing that I want to do is, when making my appearance decisions about the font that I'm going to use in here, I want to match this more closely than just by assuming I know what the font is. To do that, I'm going to use one of Acrobat's editing tools. So I will select Tools, Advanced Editing, Touch Up Text Tool. And I'm just going to drag select over the existing text in the document, and I'm not going to change it. That's what the tool is designed to do, but it also gives me some information that's useful when setting up these text fields. I'm going to right-click on it and choose Properties. Now, if I have a Macintosh without a right button mouse, I can always hit Control-click to bring up the same contextual menu. I'll choose Properties. This is just a warning telling me that the original font is not available, so that I can't make touch-up edits to it, but that's okay. That's not what I'm trying to do. I'll go ahead and click OK. All I want to do with this Properties dialog box is look to see what the original font name was and what the font size was. I'll jot that information down, click Close, and then I'll return to the Text Field tool, double-click on it, go back to my Appearance panel, and that's how I know what font size and font to use when setting up the appearance for this text field. It's very common when you work with forms, especially in a legacy situation, to move them forward through the process as I've done, and to need to try and match fonts from older versions of PDF files that you've created. Because Acrobat allows you to embed a font into a PDF file when you create it, which is what happened here, I was able to pull that information out of the document with the Touch-Up Text tool, and then at least try to match it as closely as possible. And even though the font that I used in this document to create it originally wasn't available on this system, I was able to find a font that matched closely enough so that I could go ahead and create a text field that at least looks similar to the information that was in the document. I'll go ahead and click Close, and I'll preview, and I've created my text field.